Friends, tonight we're going to talk about something critical that nobody's speaking on, and that is how the news media has failed the American people and how they have significant culpability in the political dysfunction that has plagued our country for the last several years. This all came to a head for me when I saw Marjorie Taylor Greene insulting the physical appearance of another duly elected member of Congress 3 days ago in an actual congressional hearing. This is reprehensible on her part, of course, but she would not have gotten there had the news media not abdicated its responsibility to the people of this country and its historic place in the functioning of our democracy in pursuit of greed, power, and money. So we're going to look at that clip, and I'm going to show you everything you need to know about how bad the media has failed and how we need to start putting them in the conversation of culpability and responsibility for where we're at. Lives are at stake, and in my world, nobody gets off the hook. All right, for those of you who haven't seen it, or even if you have, we're going to roll the clip right now of Marjorie Taylor Greene insulting the physical appearance of another duly elected member of Congress, Jasmine Crockett, at an official hearing. This is 3 days ago on a Friday. And we're going to take this, and I'm going to explain to you how the media has failed and how Marjorie Taylor Greene got to that point and was basically created into a monster, not only because she's a terrible person, but because the media has enabled her and emboldened her. Roll the tape.
I think your fake eyelashes are messing up.
No,
what you're
ain't
reading.
nothing.
Hold on.
Listen.
Order, Mr. Chairman.
That's beneath even
order,
you.
regain order of your committee.
Order.
I do have a point of order, and I would like to move to take down Ms. Greene's words. That is absolutely unacceptable. How dare you
Meeting will
attack the
suspend.
physical
Meeting will
appearance of another
suspend.
person?
Are your feelings hurt?
When I talk about the media having failed America, where do I get that from? It's very simple. It comes from the First Amendment, the language that mentions the free press, and how that's been interpreted by the United States Supreme Court. In two cases that we'll look at briefly, the Supreme Court basically set forth this broad umbrella of legal protection for the media, but it was in exchange for, and it was intrinsically tied to, the responsibility of the media to uncover the truth, to uncover government deception, and to inform the public so they can make proper voting decisions. Without fulfilling that obligation, the necessity for the legal protections dissipates. Now, let's look at the two cases. The first one is New York Times versus Sullivan. In this case, set forth the standard for proving a defamation claim involving a public figure against a press outlet like a newspaper or a news website or something along those lines. And they set forth the most protective and hardest to prove standard anywhere in the world. And that is, if you are a plaintiff and you're a public figure and you claim that you were defamed by an article that was published, you have to show that it was a false statement of fact, that it was defamatory, and on top of that, damages. Most critically, you have to show actual malice, meaning you have to show there was a purpose, an intent to harm, a knowledge of falsity, that was the entire point of publishing this defamatory article. That, again, is something that is incredibly hard to prove, and that's why you see very few successful defamation cases involving public figures. Now, when you look at New York Times versus United States, this is the Pentagon Papers case, and you'll see the language on your screen right here. And this talks about not so much a legal standard, but it talks about what the framers intended for the free press and why they wrote the First Amendment the way they did. And it says, in the First Amendment, the Founding Fathers gave the free press the protection it must have to fulfill its essential role in democracy. That's key. The press has an essential role in democracy, and they have to serve the governed, not the governors. The press was protected so that it could bear the secrets of the government and inform the people, and paramount among the responsibilities of the press is the duty to prevent any part of the government from deceiving the people. Key points here, that there's an essential role in democracy for the media, that they have an obligation and responsibility to inform the people and to uncover government deception. They're not supposed to serve the governors, they're supposed to serve the public, the governed, those who vote. Now, that's key. That is what we need to look at when we're going to look at how Marjorie Taylor Greene has lied and deceived and engaged in outrageous conduct that has harmed people and arguably caused people to die in Ukraine because she's peddling Russian propaganda and delaying aid to that country, our ally, who we have an obligation and who we have promised to protect against Russian aggression in exchange for giving up their nuclear weapons in the Budapest Memorandum. And we're going to measure what she's done, those newsworthy, dangerous things, against how the media has handled it. So the first thing we're going to look at is a summary of her proposed amendments to the Ukraine aid legislation that passed several weeks ago. What she's doing here on this document, you'll see numbers on the left, and then you'll see a description on the right. This is an identification of what she wanted to make as a precondition to Ukraine receiving this critical aid that it needed to defend itself against Russian aggression. This is a country that was illegally invaded. It is a country that has been the subject of genocide, mass rape, killing, missiles into cities, blowing up maternity hospitals, all the worst behavior you can possibly imagine. And Marjorie Taylor Greene is telling these people who are totally innocent, you have to do these things before we will fulfill our security guarantee to help you, as we've promised in the past long ago. So let's go to it. Number 67 at the bottom of the screen. All right, you will see Marjorie Taylor Greene said, Ukraine, you don't get aid unless you agree to remove Zelensky. Think about how crazy, ridiculous, and unprecedented this is. This is effectively a coup. What could be more undemocratic than telling a nation that its duly elected leader has to be removed as a condition of receiving aid to defend itself against war crimes and genocide? Then you look at 57. Again, this is psychotic. It's crazy. It's never happened in the history of foreign aid or the diplomatic relations of the United States ever. She says, Ukraine, you don't get to defend yourself against genocide unless you have a complete abortion ban from the point of conception forward. Undemocratic, unbelievable, Marjorie Taylor Greene. And if you look at 11, 12, and 13, she is spouting Russian propaganda. This is FSB Kremlin talking points. These are basically accusations by Russia that are totally and provably false, that she's telling Ukraine, you have to fix, even though they don't exist, prior to receiving aid to defend yourself against genocide. You have to have free and fair elections, you have to stop persecuting Christians, and you have to close biolabs. Again, this is the kind of stuff that is so crazy it makes Alex Jones look like Mr. Rogers. You have someone who is elected to the Congress of the United States acting on behalf of Russia to prevent self-defense money from going to a totally innocent country to prevent and protect against genocide. Unreal. Now, let's look next at a clip from Jamie Raskin. This is where he called her out on the floor of the House of Representatives when she said things that just are baffling even for her. He asked for her evidence and she didn't respond. She just sat there like a log. Look at this and then ask yourself if her failure to come up with evidence for the things she said is newsworthy. Roll the clip.
Now she had the opportunity to tell the world what her views about Russia are. I put them out there, exactly what she has said. She said that the aid that the taxpayers of America are sending to the people of Ukraine to defend themselves against Vladimir Putin and the Russian army falls into the hands of Nazis. I want to see her proof. Where's her evidence? She talks about NATO Nazis. Does the minority believe that our allies in NATO who are trying to defend the people of Ukraine are Nazis? Has it come to this? Gentlelady talked about a massive invasion. We had a massive...
All right, guys, we're at the conclusion. I'm going to tie everything up we've discussed today. Remember, the genesis of this video was Marjorie Taylor Greene's behavior at that committee hearing last week. When I saw that, it made me ask, how the hell did this woman get to this point? It was less about who she is right now and more about her evolution or her path. And very quickly, in my own mind, it became clear the news media played a very substantial role in that process. And when we look at the news media, we look at what the founders of this country and the drafters of the Constitution envisioned when they created the Bill of Rights, including the First Amendment that mentions a free press. As we discussed, they have a responsibility to prevent any part of the government, including Marjorie Taylor Greene, from deceiving the people. They have an obligation, a responsibility, and that's why they have so much protection under our legal system, more than any other legal system on this planet. When you look at that aspirational view of what the media is supposed to be, and then you look at Marjorie Taylor Greene's crazy, outrageous, unprecedented behavior and statements, that I highlighted in the previous segment, then you would expect, if the framers' intent was being met, that the media would ask her about some of these things she just said recently. Things like accusing our NATO allies of being Nazis who are actually stealing billions of dollars that are earmarked for Ukraine. Things like that there is a conspiracy within our government to kill Ukrainian men to feed money to the military industrial complex of the United States. Well, I mean, just break that little statement down there. That would mean there are hundreds, if not thousands, of people in the State Department, in procurement, in the Pentagon, and so forth, who are basically involved in what amount to war crimes, felonies, conspiracy, long-term prison type of offenses. This is just one or two small things that I highlighted for you. Trying to, have Volodymyr Zelensky removed as a condition of getting money to prevent genocide. Repeatedly making statements that are pure and unadulterated Russian propaganda. And remember, we are at war with Russia. They are using Havana syndrome to maim and disable our diplomatic people, our diplomatic corps, our intelligence community officers. They are attacking, NATO ammunition factories and NATO facilities with actual kinetic weapons and explosives, on and on and on. The media, for someone like her, who, by the way, is also on the Homeland Security Committee and is also on the Government Oversight and Accountability Committee. So therefore, not only is she a congresswoman saying all this crazy stuff and doing all these wild things, she's someone who deals directly with the national security matters that are implicated by who she is. Well, look at the screen right now. With all this history and all this danger that's out there and all of the crazy, unprecedented things that she's done and said just in the past few months, she has been surrounded over and over and over again, time after time after time, day after day after day, throughout March, throughout April, by huge crowds of reporters, getting asked dozens of questions, receiving all of this attention, because it's necessary for her to get the followers, to get the fundraising, and that's who she is. She's a, performative non-legislator. That's it. She's basically a social media troll that is elected in Congress. And the problem with this is you have essentially dual parasites, right? You have her acting as a parasite, using the media to get attention, to get followers, to pump up her ego. And then you have the news media that doesn't care about its responsibilities to the American people, as the founders intended, and only cares about money, greed, and power. That's what it comes down to. They're using each other, but the person that suffers the most, fundamentally, are the American people and our friends and allies overseas. That is the victim. Those are the people who we should be thinking about. And this is crazy when you think about it, that of all the things that have happened, she was not asked once, despite hundreds of questions in totality with all these crowds in March and April and so forth, about anything she said. And because of that, we're in a situation of increasing danger. And all we can do is hold the media accountable and understand that they are failing their role and their duties to this country. They don't get off the hook. Lives are at stake. So I made this video. I wanted to point that out. Nothing happens in a vacuum. There's multiple parts to any catastrophe, and that's essentially what we have here. The media, Marjorie Taylor Greene, working off each other. Tell me if you agree or disagree with my conclusion in the comments. God bless Ukraine. God bless America. Thank you for watching.